Good afternoon, everyone. This is Stuart Cohen from IGI Cyber Labs. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes. We're just waiting for some of your colleagues to log into today's session. We are fortunate enough to have Billy Turner with us. Billy is with ThreatAdvice. They provide a full and rich security solution stack for MSPs that are looking to move from the MSP world and the break-fix IT world into cyber hygiene and to be, a full-fledged MSSP and help their customers along that journey. So we'll get started in just a couple of minutes. We're just waiting for people to log in. Thanks so much for joining today. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, my name is Stuart Cohen. I want to thank you very much for attending today's session. Just to give you a little bit from an agenda standpoint, this is designed to be a live Nodeware demonstration and also an opportunity to talk with an industry leader about the role of the MSPs, how MSPs can support small and mid-sized businesses, not only with Nodeware and continuous scanning, but through the entire stack, whether you're just getting started in cyber hygiene or whether you're moving into a full-fledged MSSP program. Also for end user organizations that are interested in, not only a demonstration of Nodeware, but some questions you could ask someone to get some perspective on or hear what others of your peers are asking if you're not ready for a one-on-one discussion, demonstration, proof of concept, or trial. So this gives you an opportunity to kind of see firsthand and hear what some of your peers have to say. We do have a few questions that were submitted in advance, but as always, if you have a question, put it in the question box or the chat box. We'll do our best to get to every single one of those. And as always, this is being recorded, so the rebroadcast will be available on YouTube in a couple of days. Before we get started, I just want to talk to you about a couple of other upcoming events we have. We've been running a series of cybersecurity thought leadership for the last almost 12 months. Coming up is a session from a board member and investor perspective. What are the new priorities? How have the new priorities increased compliance requirements and with the frequency of cyber attacks? As a board member, as an investor or an angel investor, what are you doing differently for the companies that you're involved with? We're fortunate enough to have Jay Leak with us. He's the managing partner at SYN Ventures. And prior to that, he was the global CISO at Blackstone, where they had a portfolio of about 150 companies that Blackstone had invested in. They had a chief information security officers collaborative group that met. And then they wanted to make sure that all of their investments in their portfolio companies were doing the right things from a cybersecurity standpoint. So it'd be great to get Jay's perspective on how the role has changed, what's required for small and mid-sized businesses, and some things that he would recommend. We did, just so you know, we did one with the former chief security officer at USAA, Gary McCallum, a couple of weeks ago, and he gave a perspective on that. We will have one from a CIO perspective and others going forward. Also, we just started a series around how MSPs can better support the SMB cybersecurity community, how we can collectively mature the MSP marketplace to take on small businesses and mid-sized businesses with all the help they need. We are doing that with our partner, Tim Coach, who's the director at Gradient. And we will be adding our partners onto those sessions coming up. The next one, as you can see, is on June 22nd. So with that, I'd like to introduce Billy Turner. Billy is from ThreatAdvice. As I said, they have a full solution stack that they make available. And, why don't we'll get started on one of the questions that we got asked in advance, which was, Billy, can you tell us a little bit about the solution that you provide to MSPs and how MSPs might be using that as they put their first toe in the water for supporting cyber hygiene, all the way to a sophisticated and complete cyber solution for their end clients?
Sure, yeah. So, we saw a need for MSPs to really start transitioning to a security provider. And one of the things we saw is that there was a lot of questions about what products to use, where to start, where to begin in those offerings. So we put together a platform that we refer to as a breach prevention platform. Um, our focus for that is the ability to assess, manage, and protect, and as well as teach our clients. So we've given it a simple approach in that you don't have to have a full staff full of security experts to get started, but it gives you the tools to become security experts. And one of those tools, of course, is our integration with Nodeware and the ability to do, and I can't stress this enough, continuous vulnerability scanning. Along with that, we have the ability to manage some multiple integrations, whether it's an EDR, a SIM tool, an encryption tool, and then of course teaching our humans who can cause so much havoc on our networks. So that's pretty much a super high level of our platform. Assess, manage, and teach, and again, things that MSPs may have been overlooking in the past, but are imperative to future success.
Maybe you could maybe just elaborate for a second. For a small business that kind of thought they'd never be found by the bad guys, so they never really worried about cybersecurity, but they had somebody to take care of their desktops, their servers, or maybe they were in the cloud. Can you maybe elaborate on kind of how they could get started, with an MSP, or how an MSP could use a portion of your solution to help them?
Yeah, well, in the past, companies reached out to MSPs for help desk, somebody to call when they couldn't print, when their email wasn't working, and day-to-day operations are certainly very important in today's world. But with everything that's going on outside, security is of the utmost importance. It's helping somebody with their printer doesn't matter when your entire network is down. So what we've put together is a solution that I think the best way to put it is that companies thought that these solutions were only out there for Fortune 500 companies, for large businesses, for enterprise businesses. And, vulnerability scanning has been around for a while, but small to medium-sized businesses weren't doing that. So now MSPs can go to their clients, add it to their stack at a very affordable and easy to price product that then is going to give them what I like to say the same feature sets, the same protection, the same monitoring that you would expect to see it from a large business, an enterprise type businesses. So I think the value add there is for our MSPs, and then obviously for their clients, is that they can now have those same tools. They can now be able to have those same protections in place.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll have other questions. I'd like to introduce Frank Ramonde. Frank is in charge of all of our channel development and partnerships. And Frank is going to walk us through a Nodeware demonstration, show you, how not only end users use Nodeware, but how our MSPs provide a solution for those as well. So with that, Frank, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Stuart, and hello, Billy and everybody online. Appreciate your time. I'm going to share my right screen so I get the right view up here. But Billy talked a little bit about it as kind of his main piece, and then I wanted to call out a few other particular key benefits that that you'll see in the demo, really, but sort of how they're implemented. But really, the truly continuous scanning, normal business hour scanning, not a scheduled thing, not a once a weekend, once a month, once a quarter, as we've seen a lot of the compliance requirements and auditing requirements and just cyber insurance requirements are requiring a much more of an active program, continuously monitoring the networks, and that's what we provide. So nothing else, that's the key critical deliverable. The real-time alerts of network access, as well as other vulnerabilities that come up. You can, I'll kind of walk through this quickly. We have a lot of easy, available, and insightful reports. It can be scheduled or can be called on demand when you need it then. And we provide all the virtual sensors and endpoint agents free of charge. So you can deploy as many as you want, and in the sort of the proper model that you need to get them deployed so that the entire business is protected. So if you go looking at the site here, you can see kind of a quick overview of what you provide is the elements, which is kind of the home page. We have our customers, the sensors that you have deployed across your MSP's network, or your network as an MSP, the types of subscription, the reports, and then there's a full page of support that opens up here. But as we start here, we can look and see the average score across all my customers as an MSP is 945. Not bad, could be better. Sort of in the medium risk level there. Optimizing or trying to get to 999. You can see your number of customers and the number of assets, et cetera, that you can click on. So here we'll go dive into a customer. You can see various offices here. These could be locations, it could be in different companies. It's depending on how you want to set it up and how you want to deliver the data. But we'll take a look at this one particular customer. You can see 964 overall score, and you can see all the assets that are available and discovered on the network. And the range here, again, is everything from edge devices, IoT, like an IP camera. Let me just make sure is that you'll be able to see okay. I just need to move something away, sorry. These turn pop-ups, I forgot to turn them off. But at this point, you can see every IP camera, VoIP phone, anything else that might be on the network, from printers to in some home environments, you could get your Nest cameras, et cetera. So all those assets are available. You can see, okay, there's something really issued here with this edge device from Ubuntu. We can look and see, okay, what's going on here? What are the individual scans that are going on? And this has been modified by me as the MSP, but we can see some other critical, quite a few critical vulnerabilities that are there. And sorry, just gonna get this out of the way. But we can click down into a vulnerability there, and you can get a description. Okay, so something wrong with Apache and what's going on there, so you get a description. And then we provide a little bit more detail and actually some specific suggestions for what you can do. This is kind of where the tool sort of ends and delivers its value is in this up to the point of remediation suggestions, not requirements per se or specific, we're not going to do it out of this tool. We kind of leave that up to you as the MSP to determine the best timing, the best approach, the best actual remediation for that risk, or maybe you accept it as is and you move on, and you and the partner, you and the end user are fine with what you've got there. So that's sort of the skill or the level down to that report. If we go back looking at this first screen here, and let me just review again quickly what you see at a first eyeball is you can see whether the asset is online or not. This green eyeball is showing whether it's online or off. You can see these three critical ones here that are with the triangle. But you get the IP address, the MAC address, the name, which you can call it, you can develop the naming system. We get the fingerprint, and then we have these tags and sort of groupings that are, some of them are normal or provided automatically. Some of them are ones that you can create yourself. So if you wanted to look at all the servers across the network, you can just click on the blue server thing and see those specific devices. If you want to look at Ubuntu devices, boom, you can quickly get a quick glance. If you want to just look at IoT, you can see all the IoT devices. So that's the quick way to do that. Now I mentioned the continuous scanning, and what we mean by that is every minute or so on the network, every asset is evaluated and understood, whether it's online or whether it's or off. But we track that, and we know that what those assets are, and that allows what I mentioned as well about alerts. So if somebody, an unauthorized device, or maybe it's it's a clean, legitimate asset coming onto the network, the system will alert that, flag it, send you an alert either via email or into your Slack channel, and or directly into your PSA system if you want it to go into that and create a service ticket. But that's available, and those alerts are include just an asset. It could be a new vulnerability that's discovered and alerted, or it could be there's another type of alert that comes up. But basically, those alerts are available, and they can be programmed for you, easily set for how you want to get them and what you want to get them on, and who they're going to go to as well. Yes, sir.
So we got a question. Somebody asked about the IoT devices, and if their business is in the cloud, and all they have is IoT devices, does it still make sense to do continuous scanning?
Well, I actually asked Mark on our line as well. Our support engineer might be able to answer that a little bit better. But I mean, it always makes sense to scan every asset, right? There's no point in, and again, some of these IoT devices are more sophisticated than others that maybe have a real, access point into them. If it's a risky asset, I mean, Billy, you can add from your perspective, but really, when if it's on the edge, and especially if it's remote and nobody's around it, you really want to be careful to make sure that that's one is not being exploited in any way. So it's just a matter of how you might deploy that tracking. But yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't.
Any thoughts, Billy?
Yeah, no, I mean, if you have devices that are connected and have an IP address, I would say whether it's 1, 5, 10, or 100, you should be doing vulnerability scanning on it consistently. I don't want to jump ahead or maybe steal any of Frank's thunder, but the other thing too that we hear a lot is, well, we're on cloud servers, or we're in Azure, or we're in AWS, and we don't even have an office anymore, and our workforce is working from home, but they are using company provided PCs, and those company provided PCs have access to company provided data, and that company provided data is now accessible by their home networks, so again, not to steal any of Frank's thunder, but the ability to use the agent to scan those devices when we're offline, we often mention that as one of the major flaws of the way we've done vulnerability scanning in the past, is that when you had that scheduled scan, if the devices weren't on, if they weren't powered on, if you have road warriors who are out in the field, or you had a work from home workforce, how did you handle all of that? So yeah, again, the short answer there is, if you've got an IP device that's connected to the network and has access to company data, then it should be scanned.
Yeah, great.
Well, you don't have to tell the people at Target about their air conditioning units that they would have liked that scanned, or the Bellagio and their fish tank thermostats. They would have liked to have had those scanned. That would have saved them, hundreds of millions of dollars. So,
and Stuart, just to jump in on that, again, I don't mean to harp on this too much, the continuous scanning component, but maybe they had done a scan a week before. Maybe they had a scan scheduled for the day after, so that's what's really important. And that's, again, the benefits of Nodeware and the continuous scanning, is that we've seen too often that a scan was done last month, and there's another scan that's going to be scheduled next month. But what do we do in between?
Yep. Well, that's it. That's a great segue, Billy. Just thought I was going to go there next. So you didn't really steal the thunder. You just set me up. How's that? So, again, for how we tracking the data and how we're able to do the continuous scanning is in two ways. And one is these sensors, right? That if you do have a physical network, or if you do have a virtual network, you can deploy out a sensor onto and capture every device. And so we have a Windows sensor that can go on into an Intel NUC device, or it can go onto any network device. It could be going to a notebook that's on that network. We have a vSphere and a Hyper-V sensors as well for deployment on virtual machines. So those are going continuously and tracking every minute, as I mentioned. And then on top of that, right, is the agent that you could put on a Windows machine or a Mac or some Linux endpoints that are maybe on and off the network, or maybe completely off the network in the scenario of a fully remote company. So again, those are deployable as you see, and we don't charge. You can put as many sensors or agents as you want. Our pricing and sort of program licensing model is based on blocks of assets. So if you've got 10 customers and 50 each, that'd be a total of 500 assets that you have licensed, and you can split them whatever number you need amongst them. So the full multi-tenant solution that you can charge and bill. And Stuart mentioned the Gradient MSP that we're working with, and we're integrating into their billable system that you can, if you've got 33 for this customer and 66 and 222, those will get integrated from our platform into the Gradient into your billable system. So again, just ease of processing and setting the right cost basis for each of your customers, so you can track that more clearly. One thing I wanted to just go into a little bit is in the reporting. I mentioned all these reports. So if you see down here, maybe I'm not sure if you can see them on the scan on the broadcast. We have about 7 different types of reports, from a network report, an external detail, an executive summary report, which is very valuable for customer expense or discussions, vulnerability, log4j, inventory, and an XML report. All these reports are either available to be scheduled. If you want it every Monday morning, you want to come into your office and see what the last week produced and what the status is, or you can just come in any time of day. It's now Thursday afternoon. I want to get a report for this. I'm going to get a 2-page executive summary. I run the report. Within a minute or a few seconds here, I'll have that up and available. Let's see, new reports available. I'm going to download it. Boom. Secure download. So again, we're not going to send these out because again, we're a security company. We want to keep this data secure. It's only going to be for you when you pull it. But again, we can pull it up here. We see, okay, great. So in this particular customer, 964 is their current score. On a monthly business review or quarterly, you could say, you know what, last quarter we were at 900 and we've done these things, and now we're at 964. Again, you're showing your value, your worth, they're not just paying a bill every month. They can see some progress and deliverable from you. Right, you get the top 10 vulnerabilities, you get the most common that you can see across them, and then you get sort of a quick profile of how many are critical, low, etc. And then there's some other data on here, and this comes as an HTML or a PDF. You can, if you have the editing, you can just place your logo on here. There's no reference specifically to Nodeware on here, so it's kind of generic and available for you to brand and play as you want. Last thing on the reporting and sort of data exchange is the API set that we have. So all this data that I've gone through and drilled down to is available on the API and some other the reports as well. So if you want to pull it in, and we've also used this is part of what Billy and ThreatAdvice is using is our API tool to be able to integrate the data into their platform. So if you've got a particular platform that you're looking to, or APIs on your own, you can utilize these tools and get the data directly. So,
let me just make one comment on the 2-page executive report. At one time, we had a full-blown report that listed all of the devices and all the vulnerabilities and everything with it. And a group of the members from our advisory council got together and said, this is what we really need to be able to show our clients. And we also had some end user organizations that said, if I could get something like this that came right out of my dashboard that I could show my executives, this is a way for me to easily identify and justify new services from our MSP that I'm interested in taking advantage of. So this was something we put together completely market driven, both from end users that were working with MSPs and MSPs that were supporting small and mid-sized businesses. So a great example of kind of where the market really told us what was required, and then we've delivered it.
And actually, those reports are, the full report is still available if somebody wants it, but to your point. Thank you. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, if I could add, great point there. But Frank, if you could bring up the full report, the one thing I'd like to point out why we do love this, we never print it, right? But we do love the report. You know, that was for the executive team. This is for the technical team that has to remediate it. Is the hot links or the hyperlinks rather there. So we definitely like this report. We like what you've done with it, the ability to go to an asset, click on it, and then jump to it and see that detail there too. You know, some of our clients, they can get up to 400 or 500 page reports depending on the number of assets. Obviously not something you want to print, but it certainly is something, a very good report for the technical team to work from.
Yeah, and to that point, so what we've actually, you know, what we're capturing here in the report is what I was drilling down to. It's just captured in there. So, you know, you can show it online, you can work on it online, but when you need the report, at least from an accountability or an auditing standpoint down the line, you have that as available data. So, all right, Stuart, I think I'm kind of got through unless there's any other questions come up, or I'll stay on the line if things come up as well.
Well, I think one of the it leads me to a question, you know, getting back to the corporate devices that that people have and they're working remote in a hybrid workforce. You know, we always used to say, you know, put an agent on that device so you could see what was happening on that device while it was connected to the network. But now we see a lot of people putting sensors on their corporate devices when they're working at home because they want to know, you know, what's on their home network, what's on that Wi-Fi network. And if you live in an urban environment, you know, who are your neighbors that might be using your Wi-Fi that you're not familiar with because you don't have a very sophisticated platform. So while we are not in the home security business and the home Wi-Fi security business, it's amazing how many people we have installing sensors on corporate laptops because, as you pointed out, right, they got IoT devices that are connected to them, and that device is connected to critical data that's important as an organization you keep track of. So
yeah, and that's what I'm showing here. Is this West Coast office is actually my home network, right? So you can see, you know, an external site that I've put on that I frequent a lot. There's desktop device this is actually the device I'm communicating from now. Looks like I need to do a few things here, right? Or I need to check with my IT department. But you can see the smart, you know, TVs. You can see the Alexas and the Nest cameras, etc. And so, you know, again, your point, you know, the other thing, you know, kids bring in a Xbox home or some other external device and opens up the whole network to who knows who, right? So it's just a good check to make sure that somebody that's involved in healthcare or financial services, an executive that's got a lot of data that could be targeted from outside somewhere, you know, you don't know what's on that network. So you can't protect what you don't know. And so this is a good extension to think about if you've got certain sensitive executives that you need to, you know, make sure the home is protected.
So we got a question from somebody asking if we provide trials. The answer is yes, we provide free trials. We would actually prefer that we set you up or match make you with an MSP in your area, ideally, that can provide you local assistance and local support. But we will do a trial for anyone. We'll do both trials and proof of concepts for MSPs. We do ask that you go through some sort of kind of critical success factors, what it is you'll be evaluating, what it is you're hoping to accomplish, and if you accomplish it, you know, how would you like to use Nodeware? So we have kind of a joint agreed upon plan for the trial. And as I said, we will do that for people, but we would prefer that trial gets done with your local MSP provider, and we'll do everything we can to match you up with that.
And I'll just add on that, Stuart, that the trial literally within an hour or two, depending on how big the network is, but literally within an hour or two of the trial being initiated or the proof of concept, you're going to have all the data, at least for a quick glance at knowing the assets that are there, and some of the ones you didn't know were there, or the forgotten server that's in the closet, or somebody brought something in a BYOD device that you never knew was there, and it's just available on the network. But all the data, including the scoring, the individual vulnerability score that we provide, you're going to have that within an hour or two. So it's not, you don't need, we have the 7 days so you can play around with it and all that, but the data you can get is going to be available in a short time because our network utilization is so low. Whenever you start this at 2 in the afternoon or 2 in the morning, doesn't matter. We're going to be able to get the data in a quick turnaround for you.
Yeah, if I could add to that, I hope it's okay to add this to it. For our MSP audience, we encourage our partners to, once you are a Nodeware partner, you have the ability to turn on a client and turn on that 7-day trial for a client. And we've had some of our MSPs that are using it as a proof of concept because it is so easy to deploy, because it doesn't put a load on the network or impact the network at all, that they're actually using that scan to go out and maybe check and upsell existing clients, or maybe even to do an assessment on a potential client to see where they're at. And
yeah, we've seen that a lot where they use this as, they're going to propose an ongoing managed service, but they realize, before we do that, there's 3 other things that we need to do, and that's a different statement of work, and it's a specific scope that is incremental to what you were thinking about, what you thought you were going to have to do.
And you're right. And not only can it help an MSP earn business, but it can also help an MSP take on an account that may be just full of, or let me say, not take on an account that may be just full of vulnerabilities that really need to be remediated before that MSP can successfully onboard that client. Right. So certainly twofold there. And
or if you've got an existing customer, you run it and you realize maybe we don't need this customer anymore, and then you could fire them. So.
And Billy, maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on how people are using, whether it's Nodeware or a piece of your offering, to, if you will, learn a little bit more, show off some capabilities that an MSP now has to their clients, and how they can build on that for greater success, and additional, not only revenue for the MSP, but also opportunities to really help their clients not only save money, but be smarter and stronger as it relates to these issues.
Yeah, I mean, well, to kind of address the first part of that question is, we don't have a breach prevention platform Lite and then a breach prevention platform Pro. We have a breach prevention platform, and the vulnerability assessment is included and it is there. And if the MSP chooses not to use it, that's okay, but it's there and they should use it. So there's no reason for them not to use it. Cybersecurity and saving money and ROI is so hard to calculate, because I can't quantify, I can't put a cost on, what would happen if my network or my environment was breached and my network was down for a day or for a week, or the impact that your reputation as a company can have if, there was some type of breach that was exploited by a vulnerability that you then, caused, some impact on your clients. So it's so hard to put all of that into place. One of the things that I will say to our MSP audience is that the integration, our MSP audience has full access to the dashboard, the platform, all the feature functionality. They get the full product, right? What we show to the client is really dependent upon what the MSP wants to show to their client, how much they want to show. We tell you that, as an MSP, you've been doing your best to keep your clients secure, and you've probably got a great firewall in place. You've probably got great endpoint protection in place. You're doing email security. You're doing all these things, right? But there's so many vulnerabilities out there. that you just may not be aware of in a switch, or maybe that person, somebody in the office needs to print, and they say, oh, you know what, there's a printer in the closet, it's been sitting there for a couple years, nobody uses it. And so you go and you pull that printer out and you plug it into the network, right? Again, back to the continuous scanning. If you're not doing continuous scanning, you might find that printer has a vulnerability a week, or 2 weeks, or a month from now. With Nodeware, you're going to find that right away and possibly prevent a potential catastrophe. So very hard to put a number on, but the other great part is the transparency to your end users, to your clients. Your clients are really quick to get upset when you don't call back on a printer call that's been down for half an hour or something, right? But do they know everything that you're doing in the background? Do they know that you're continuously monitoring and scanning that network for vulnerabilities and remediating those vulnerabilities? So I always, whenever I get asked about ROI when it comes to cybersecurity, it's anywhere from 0 to infinity.
Well, and I was going to say one other thing kind of on the vulnerabilities, right? Because we are the scanning, I don't know if I mentioned it, I maybe have, but every asset is scanned for its vulnerability every day. So if a new vulnerability is discovered, yesterday and it's published out this morning, by tomorrow you're going to know whether your device has that. There was just a new one, I think it's F5 was a new vulnerability sort of bug discovered yesterday, and people are worrying about that. Well, once we get that published into our database, we'll be able to report it. So you can't count on what you got a week ago, let alone a couple days ago, to make sure that your devices are protected, or at least protected as well as they can be. So
yeah, well, Log4j took everybody by surprise, right? Just kind of came out of nowhere. And there was probably people that had done a scan prior to that they thought they were fine, and then all of a sudden somebody discovered that vulnerability, put it out there, and as a client, as an MSP that has clients, as any company, you'd want to know about that as soon as possible. So
absolutely. Yeah, and just kind of in our process, just to clarify that we get the reports from Microsoft's and Cisco's and everybody that identifies and reports on their vulnerabilities. So we have a massive sort of knowledge base and database that every day they're updated with new ones. So that's kind of our collection of the continuous scanning goes against the database, and it's always sort of checking for anything new and anything risky that's been reported. And we're generally able to incorporate that within, again, on that daily scan. So it's not a static database by any stretch of the imagination, as there's new ones discovered every day, dozens every day. So those go into our base.
And then one thing I'd like to bring up that we love about the product and what we certainly integrate and use is the external scanning as well.
Right.
So not only are we just scanning the internal network, but we're also coming, Nodeware is coming from the outside in and checking. I mean, accidents happen. Somebody troubleshooting a firewall, has been known to turn on a rule and open up a port to test something and then forget to close that port. And so the external vulnerability scan checks all those ports on the external network, make sure that they're all closed. And that's another huge part of that cybersecurity hygiene. Yeah,
and what we provide in there, just to clarify, so you can enter in the external website. It's not something that we scan through the sensors or through agents, but it's simply enter in the websites that you want to monitor and scan, and they just get added to the mix. So you can quickly and easily see, they'll be show up just in the report. I showed one of those external sites on there. They show up just like every one of your other assets.
So we got a question that says, if I'm an MSP and interested in ThreatAdvice and I need cyber insurance or cyber liability coverage for my clients, Billy, how would you suggest they proceed?
Yeah, well, I certainly, I think that maybe at one of the later slides, my contact information will be on here. They can feel free to reach out to us, ThreatAdvice.com. They can check out our website. But just reach out to us, and we'll get back to you and help you out with that.
Perfect.
I think there was a second part of that question that I missed.
Around cyber insurance and cyber liability.
Yes, sorry, apologize. I knew there was another part I missed there. Yeah. So again, back to our breach prevention platform. We've tried to combine a lot of the necessities into one platform, so you're not having to go here or there, to get those various offerings. And we include the option in our platform to purchase what's called cybersecurity warranty. That's not a replacement for cybersecurity insurance. It's not an alternative to it. It's sort of an add-on to it that, from an MSP's perspective, if you're protecting your clients with this warranty, and there are certain things you have to do, vulnerability scanning being one of those things that has to be in place. Endpoint protection has to be in place. Security awareness training has to be in place. Multi-factor authentication has to be in place. If you have all of those components in place for your client, and there is a incident or some type of breach that happens, then you'll have a warranty to help reimburse those costs to get you back up and running and operational, and in a lot of cases prevent you from having to make that cyber insurance claim and then watching your cyber insurance skyrocket. We're hearing right now that a lot of cyber insurance companies, they just continue to maximize their requirements for that. So this warranty is a great addition to that, and that comes part of our platform, and our platform helps you check off those boxes to make that so that if you did have that, you would be reimbursed.
No, that's great. Thanks you very much. Frank, maybe a question about, from a partnership standpoint, where can I acquire Nodeware if I'm an MSP interested in getting it?
Well, I'd call Billy, right, for one option. But if you've got some of your other assessment tools in place and you don't need the rest of the services Billy provides, you can get it through TD SYNNEX today. There's an annual SKU or sort of a upfront payment, and then there's a monthly payment program or SKU for the annual subscription. The single block of about 50 assets, if you're just kind of starting on your own, is about $320 or so from SYNNEX for the year. So kind of down per asset per month, it's about 50 cents, 55 cents per asset. So most companies, most employees, when you average them out, have at least 2 assets. Well, they may not have 2 assets, but the average per employee in a company is 2 to 3 assets. So maybe $1.10 to $1.50, is kind of your cost to get all of this per employee, and then that scales down as you scale up on your volumes. You can also buy the product through Telarus. If you're an agent of Telarus, we have an MSP program through them, as well as if you just want to be kind of a reseller and enable us to help your customer directly on your behalf. We can do it there. We're adding a couple other distribution points here soon. Again, we mentioned Billy with ThreatAdvice. If you're a customer or looking at SOC Solder, they've also got Nodeware integrated in that you can buy it as a add-on to their services. And then Security Studio is another sort of current integration partner that has got the product enabled in. So you got options if you want to do it yourself, maybe just test it out on your own. We can do that proof of concept, or if you want to buy it on your own and integrate it in with your other tools, or you go to call up Billy and he can show you how to use it along with the other tools. It kind of really depends where you are on your sort of cyber hygiene practice, and how much you want to do yourself or utilize others.
So, Billy, we got a question about IoT devices, and this is similar to the question we had earlier, but it's if my business is moving all to the cloud, can you still support an IoT only or remote only organization?
Yes, I mean that's the beauty of the agent, being out there. So yes, absolutely. And I will tell you, part of our platform, I've mentioned is security awareness training, and we are constantly adding to our security awareness training. So the employees that do work from home, there's several topics in there that talks about how to be safe when you're working from home, how to keep your home networks safe, you know, how to watch for devices that are on your network. I think you brought up the Xbox earlier, you know, those types of things. I mean, you know, some of these kids these days are pretty darn smart, and they know how to get into a router and open up some ports, you know. So yes, certainly still can be used, and I think security awareness training and threat education goes along with that.
Great. We got one question about the report, scheduling the reporting. And Frank, you don't need to pull the demo back up, but how many reports are there? How often can they be scheduled? And can they and how do I use them to validate my compliance requirements?
Yeah, so there's 7 different reports you can get, from the executive summary to a very specific log4j audit if you want that, or the one that we showed before was the full network report. So you can kind of go minimal to medium to you know, if you're an insomniac, it might be good fodder for you for at nighttime reading, is to see the level of detail that's in there. So that's the range of types of data that are available. From the scheduling standpoint, you could schedule it every day if you wanted down, you know, report it on the screen. We saw the delivery of them, so you can schedule them. You know, again, maybe you want it Monday morning, maybe you want it Friday afternoon. Okay, make sure everybody did their things they were supposed to do during the week. Or you can just go in and say, hey, I need this now, and you saw within 30 seconds to 60 seconds, you can have the report available in PDF or HTML format.
Yeah, if I could add to that, Stuart, just to kind of let everyone know, ThreatAdvice was born out of the fintech industry, financial technology. So that's kind of how we evolved, and why security is so important to us, because of the banking and finance industry. And one of the requirements that they have is not just enough to do vulnerability scanning, but you also have to then store your vulnerability scans and be able to review those during an audit. So it's not just enough to say, oh yeah, we had a vulnerability back in January, but yeah, our tech team took care of that and it's all fixed. You have to show what that vulnerability was, have to show what was done to remediate it, and then you have to show that it has now been remediated. So that's one of the things that we're working with Nodeware right now, and we'll have in one of our future releases coming up pretty soon, is the ability to archive those reports. So in other words, schedule that full report to generate monthly. We will archive that, keep it for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever you know, compliance, regulatory compliance tells you to do, and you'll have that in there. And then one last tidbit for the MSP audience is we will soon have integration into ticketing systems, ConnectWise, Kaseya, whatever the major PSA tools you're using, to where you have a vulnerability, you remediate that vulnerability by creating a ticket from that vulnerability, work that vulnerability, and then mark that vulnerability resolved, do your rescan. Super easy to do a rescan when you remediated a critical vulnerability in Nodeware. Click of a button, you can hit that rescan and see that it has been remediated. We'll have all of that, so we'll archive and store those reports for compliance needs, and we'll also give you a ticketing system to show proof to auditors what you had and how you remediated it. So that's something that's included in our product in partnership with Nodeware.
Hey, Billy, I'm just generally curious about this. You know, our advanced APIs allow MSPs to be able to take the output of Nodeware and embed it into their own ticketing system. Mm-hmm. But the ability to take it into ThreatAdvice and then have ThreatAdvice integrated into those platforms, that's got to be a significant advantage to you guys and a significant savings to the MSPs to be able to do that. Can you talk a little bit about, how much time MSPs spend, with their ticketing systems, with their support systems, with their billing systems, and how this could be beneficial?
Yeah, so ticketing and time entries are critical to an MSP's success. Number one, everything needs to be tracked. Everything that's being done in a system. It's not just enough to go and fix something and say, oh, it's fixed, go try it. No, you need to track what you did to resolve that issue and how long it took you as well. That's how MSPs provide value to their clients. That's how they show. So much of what an MSP does is in the background, patching systems, keeping them up, monitoring them 24 hours a day, those types of items, right? So it's important to show the number of hours that are put in. So, some vulnerabilities, it may be as simple as running a patch update and getting that up to date, right? Other vulnerabilities, you might have a switch in a closet somewhere in the building that everybody forgot about. And that vulnerability is not resolvable. There's no more firmware upgrades for that switch. So that switch has to be replaced. So you need to track, the research that was done to determine that this is a device that just can't be patched. We're going to need to replace that. What it took to replace it, what you replace it with. And so the value for the MSP is being able to create a ticket from that vulnerability, track all the time that an engineer or multiple engineers has spent to remediate that vulnerability so that they have that data to show back to their client that it was remediated and we spent X amount of time to remediate that for you.
So if you have any other questions, anybody in the audience, this would be a time to submit them. We have one more question that we'll get to, and then we'll have a couple of closing remarks. Then we will finish a couple of minutes early, unless you have another question that you want to pose. And Billy, the question's probably for you, but Frank may have a comment to it on as well, which is, as an MSP, how do I convince my prospects that they ought to get started with us?
Yeah.
And when I say us, I mean at the MSP, not Nodeware.
Yeah. No. Well, so how does an MSP convince a client to get started with them?
Right.
Well, it's kind of going back a little bit to what we talked about, that once you become a Nodeware partner and or a ThreatAdvice partner, that you now have the ability to use the 7-day trial to go out and do a scan. And again, if any MSP is in the audience that have worked with other vulnerability scanners, they may be a little shy about that because they know how much it takes to set those products up and get them going and get them running. Nodeware has solved that. We can get this up and running very quickly, do that scan, and then when you take that report and you show that report to the client and let them see, the vulnerabilities that they do have that need attention, and then make sure that they know that this didn't happen overnight. This has happened over time. That's a great way, is show them that initial scan to review. Now, from ThreatAdvice's standpoint, for the MSP, is we have made it super affordable. All right, we have a baseline cost. I'm not going to announce it here, but if the MSPs want to reach out to us and we talk to them, they'll see that we have made this affordable so that a client can't say no to it. You're not going to have to increase monthly bills by $100 per user. You're not going to have huge capital expenditures like you would with some other products. So hopefully that answered the question. I tried to hit it from both angles, but it was really our goal. This is a passion of ours, cybersecurity and keeping clients and our MSPs clients protected. It's a passion and a goal for us, and we put it at a price that's almost hard to say no to. You'd be crazy to say no to it.
Yeah. Well, and kind of to summarize it, it's sort of the entry point. One of the things we've kind of narrowed down the process to for an MSP that maybe is still young or early in offering this, or is kind of wasn't sure how to approach the sales process for this. We've kind of narrowed it down to 3 simple questions that you can ask your end user, right? Can they see new devices as they connect to the network? Are you able to identify, any gaps you might have in your network? And do you have any kind of skilled IT or security team to manage the risk that you may or may not find? And if they answer no to any one of those, then Nodeware as a service to them is a great starting point to get them, knowing what's on the network, knowing when there's a breach onto the network, and you as the MSP can then say, okay, we found these things. You don't have any IT staff. Well, let us be your IT staff. Get these up to speed. Get you protected, and then ongoing. So it's a great sort of prospecting tool, as well as eventually the delivery of what you're doing. So by those simple 3 questions, it gets you a lot of data, and it just sort of helps break the ice, right, of understanding how to start the conversation.
Yeah, and the other value add that we have is we're not just trying to, hey, here's a product, good luck, happy selling. No, we're gonna work with you, your staff. If you're an MSP and you have multiple sales reps and you want us to work with them, and you're just now starting to talk about cybersecurity and propose cybersecurity solutions, that's really the value add that we come in. We want you to be successful on our platform, and the only way we can do that is to help your staff and your sales reps and your team be trained on how to approach selling cybersecurity. And we're happy to do that.
The thing I recently spoke at an ASCII conference with a whole group of MSPs, and I said that we ought to be the shortest cycle time to qualify a prospect of anything you have in your portfolio with those couple of questions Frank asked. And I also said that Nodeware should also be the lowest cost of sales of anything you have, because those 2 questions qualify. We provide a free trial. The MSP provides a free proof of concept. You can use the ease of use that Billy talked about to show them that 2-page executive report and to get started. So I tell people all the time, we ought to be the lowest cost of sales of any product or any solution you have, and we ought to be the fastest time to qualification, which are 2 things that MSPs care a lot about. So I always allude to those 2 things. I talk about those 2 things. First of all, Billy, I want to thank you for your time. Really appreciate, we're honored to have you as a partner and appreciate your time today. We're interested in getting, as many MSPs around the country using your solution stack to provide them, a mature and productive solution for what they need to support their clients. As always, we provide these public service announcement sessions. We have the one coming up on our cybersecurity thought leadership program with Jay Leak, talking about, what are the new priorities from increased compliance and the frequent cyber attacks from a board member or an investor standpoint. Feel free to attend that session. As always, if you're an MSP partner of ours, we'll give you a custom registration link, and anybody that registers through your link will give back to you as a lead. And then we will continue to work with Gradient and other partners. You'll see ThreatAdvice on a session for ours coming up in the summer. On this whole series about how do we improve the ecosystem, how do we help MSPs be better, be stronger, and how do they do a better job of growing with the needs and requirements of the small and mid-sized enterprises, as well as what the bad guys are doing and how do they need to be better prepared for it. So with that, Billy, I'm happy to give it to you if you got any closing remarks. Otherwise, we'll wrap things up.
No, just thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. I appreciate everybody's time, and look forward to hearing anybody who'd like to some additional information about ThreatAdvice.
Perfect. Well, as always, connect with us on LinkedIn. We want to collaborate. We want to have peer-to-peer collaborations and peer-to-peer discussions. If you have any questions, you had the contact information, or you can get a hold of us off our website at info@. We'll get you connected to Billy. We'll answer any questions. And as always, we will have the recording up on YouTube in a couple of days. So with that, thank everybody for your time today, and we'll see you on our next session. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everybody.